Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Skip Mason,
pastor, preacher, historian, author,
teacher, librarian, archivist, world traveler,
collector, family historian, avid reader, and creator of the popular Vanishing Black Atlanta Facebook page.
But a lot of folks who love history.
Most importantly,
he's our
dad who loves his family and who taught us the importance of our history and having important conversations.
Join him now for this episode of Conversations with Dr. Skip.
Well, good Sunday afternoon, my brothers and sisters. I greet you in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who has created this beautiful day for all of us to gather for this afternoon conversation. I am so excited today because I get to share with you a little bit about some of the men and women who have contributed to the landscape of blues and jazz and soul, including the Godfather of soul, James Brown. I'm so excited today to have you with us. But before I get to that, let me greet our senior bishop, Bishop Lawrence L. Reddick and Sister Wendy Jones Reddick, the chair of the College of Bishops, Bishop Kenneth W. Carter, Mrs. Ronzell Carter, and the Distinguished College of Bishops and their spouses, the chair of the CIT Committee, Bishop James B. Walker, and Mrs. Dolores Walker, and my bishop and the co-chair of the CIT Committee, Bishop Thomas Lewis Brown Sr. and Dr. Louise Baker Brown. I greet you. Let me thank Dr. Teresa Duhart for her tremendous support and always making things possible. So one of the things that I have enjoyed doing with this show, with this platform, is exploring, delving into, digging in a little to some other aspects of our history as a CME church. If you recall, back in March during Women's History Month, I had a chance to celebrate some of the women of our church that we know outside of the church, but made major contributions, such as Alberta Hunter and the great Maya Angelou. And so this is June, and there are many things going on in the month of June. One of those is the Black Music Month. And so while we are at the end of the month, we know that we in the church celebrate Black music. We come from the tradition of spirituals and hymns and gospel, contemporary music. But in my digging and in my research, I came across some information about some people that you may know and some that you may not know, who were affiliated or associated, grew up in the church, buried in one of the CME churches, churchyard, got that early start. And so I wanted to take a few moments before we bring up my first special guest, is to kind of walk you through some of that. Now, mind you, with Facebook, you have to be very careful about playing other folks' music because I do not own this music. And I want to make sure that banner is scrolling right now. And I'm mindful of how much time I play. But I do want to share with you just some amazing tidbits and facts of a few people that you may or may not be familiar with. The first one is a bluesman by the name of Mississippi Joe Calicott. Let me put him up.
She was a good little girl, everybody did know. Then she paid $41 for half a suit of clothes. That's my man, he ain't a treat.
Mississippi Joe Calicott was born in and around Nesbitt, Mississippi, in the Spring Hill community. And he is buried in the Mount Olive CME Church And I thought that that was one that we should know because our tradition of gospel has come out of the experiences of these great blues singers. Let me put another one up.
See my jumper hanging on the line.
R.L. Burnside is a part of the Lafayette County, the Harmontown community, and he is buried at the Free Springs CME Church Cemetery, which is right next to the church. And I think I have a photo of that I want to share with you. But it's important that we recognize these tremendous cultural icons. Let me share another one with you.
I got a letter this morning, how do you reckon it read? Say, hurry, hurry, the gal you love is dead. I got a letter this morning. I say, how you reckon it read? They say, hurry, hurry, 'cause the gal you love is dead.
Son House, one of the more well-known blues musicians, was actually a pastor of a CME church down in Mississippi, according to an interview that was done with him in 1965. Let me continue as we look at some of these wonderful musicians who were and affiliated with the CME church.
Have you ever thought of changing your music?
No.
Changing your
Why
style?
should you change music? Mozart didn't change. Bach didn't change.
Some people call it progressive, Louis.
Well, what is progressive? You tell me, because all we play is good music. We never did worry about styles. Ain't no such thing as styles in music. Ain't but two kind, good or bad. That's all. Now that progressive and all that jujitsu music and all that, you can have it. I'm not interested, because I get my applause for playing good. And in language.
So from 1925 until 1929, Louis Armstrong resided in Chicago, Illinois. He and his mother and his wife, and they were members of the Carter Temple CME Church. His mother died a couple of months after they moved there, and the pastor, Reverend Prentice Bryson of Carter Temple, eulogized his mother. And Armstrong stayed as a member of Carter Temple until he relocated to New York City. So we had the great trumpeter Louis Armstrong for a brief period in the history of our CME church. Let me share another one with you, and one that you might recognize and know. Just a second.
It is 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
There is no one on the street with me, little baby. 5 o'clock in the morning. And there is no one on the street with me. All right, we're home now. And I am evil, tired, and lonely, because you're not where you ought to be.
That is the legendary Joe Williams. He was the lead singer for the Count Basie band, and he had a string of mega hits and recorded many albums. My favorite of Joe Williams, of course, is Every Day I Have the Blues. And so we salute him. He was born in Cordele, Georgia, which is CME territory. And he relocated with his grandparents to Chicago, and they attended St. Paul CME. Joe Williams' mother and aunt also attended Payne College as well. So he was a staunch CME during his early youth and his time. And he also joined a quartet with a group of young guys who were members of the Jubilee Temple CME Church, and they were known as the Jubilee Boys. And I can just only imagine that resounding voice singing gospels at Jubilee. And this is, of course, a picture of Jubilee Temple. All right, I think I have two more before we get to our guest. Let me bring the next one up. That was Mildred Sallier, professionally known as Mickey, a champion, who was a rhythm and blues singer from Lake Charles, Louisiana, born in 1925. And she began singing at her home church, which was the Lake Charles CME Church. And so we are delighted to share and know that this early 60s rhythm and blues singer was a part of the CME Church. Now, the next one will come, is still living in Miami. He's a member of the great Trinity CME Church, where my good friend and brother, Reverend Marquise Hardrick, is the pastor. He recorded one of the biggest hits ever. And I'm only going to play just a brief sample because I don't want my show to get cut off for copyright, but you'll know just a little bit of the sound and music of Timmy Thomas. And that's all I'm going to play, because I know my Facebook friends, they will snatch you down in a heartbeat. But that song, well, first of all, Timmy grew up, and his name was Timothy, known as Timmy. Professionally, he grew up in Evansville, Indiana. He was a member of Cleve CME Church. He was a rhythm and blues singer, keyboardist, songwriter, and producer. He moved to Miami in the early 70s, joined the Trinity Church, and released one of the biggest sellers that crossed over, Why Can't We Live Together? And some of my young CME brothers and sisters will know that that song was sampled by the great hip-hop artist Drake. And so Brother Timmy is still getting paid for music that he wrote some years ago. And so I just wanted to celebrate, to honor, to call the names of these great musicians, some of which we know, some of which we aren't familiar with. The great Percy Mayfield. Some of you may remember Percy Mayfield.
Heaven, please send to all mankind understanding and peace in mind. But if it's not asking too much, please send me someone to love.
Now, y'all, that's my kind of music right there. Dinah Washington also covered that along with Gladys Knight and many others. I have not been able to confirm that Percy Mayfield was an active member of the CME Church, but I do know that his funeral was held at Phillips Temple CME Church in 1962. So maybe some of my Ninth Episcopal District brothers and sisters, Phillips Temple brothers and sisters, can let me know whether or not Percy Mayfield had affiliations. But one person I do know had an affiliation with our beloved church.
Now, before you go into the title tune of your latest album, you have a special guest.
Yeah, I do have a special guest, a young lady.
That's going to perform with you?
Yeah, she's going to take the show from me. It's Deanna Brown.
Yeah. How about it for Deanna?
You want to say something to Uncle Tom?
Yes, sir.
What you going to tell him?
How do you like Soul Train, Deanna?
I like it.
You like it?
Sure is a pretty little girl.
You look at him every day.
How's it feel to be the daughter of the Godfather of Soul?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Feels pretty groovy, huh? Okay, how about it for Deanna and James Brown, gang? Let's do it, bro.
Get it, Deanna. Get it, baby. You know that is one of my favorite clips. If I ever get a chance to introduce you like I done today and like I did when you were at Voorhees, I'm going to always open up. Deanna Brown Thomas is still fierce. She's still fabulous. She's still wonderful. Dan, she's not as shy because she can talk a lot. She still has all of that beautiful, pretty hair. And she is my friend. And I am so delighted to have Deanna Brown, one of the daughters of James Brown, the president and CEO of the James Brown Foundation, the founder of the James Brown Music Academy. And she does so much in the city of Augusta when I was in Augusta as a pastor of Trinity CME Church. What a blessing to have you here, my friend.
Well, thank you so very much. I am honored to be on the show with you. And to start out with that video, I had no idea. Goodness gracious, I tell you, it was a long time ago.
It was a long time.
Talking to my mom about it. She said, all I remember is it took me hours to do your hair.
Speaking of which, how is your mother? How is Yama doing and the rest of the family?
Everybody's doing fine. Everybody's doing well. And your buddy, my husband at Deshawn Seafood, he's still over there watching everything, and we all well.
Tell Sean I miss him tremendously, and I miss my crab legs too. I got to make a trip over there. Have you all opened back up yet?
Yes, we are open for dining. Come on in,
y'all. I'm telling you, the biggest and best crab legs on this side of heaven. You got to go there. I'm sure Fryer knows about it. I don't know whether Mike and Elder Maness knows, but we love us some Deshawn's. Well, listen, I'm so glad to have you with us. Thank you for taking some time on this Sunday because, you know, your father's legacy musically is phenomenal. He is still being recognized, still being honored. I think James Brown is, if not one of the most sampled entertainers, the most sampled
artist.
So folks are still discovering his music. They're still using it. They still find something to put in the background. But we gathered today because we want to talk about the spiritualness of your dad and his love and relationship with the Lord. And you know that, I know that. But tell us a little bit about, you know, your dad in terms of his spirituality, worshiping, really all of those things that we may not know.
Well, Dad was a member of St. Peter Baptist Church in Elko, South Carolina. And when he was home, sometimes he would definitely visit church. And he visited other churches like Trinity, CME, and Tabernacle Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. He did visit other churches, but and something that a lot of people may not know, well, I know they wouldn't know about my father, is he kept his Bible open in a lot of different rooms in his home. He started out, singing gospel music with Bobby Bird when he met Uncle Bobby in 1950, 51, 52, around that time in Toccoa, Georgia. Uncle Bobby had started the Gospel Starlighters. And so Dad joined the group, and they really wanted to do R&B, and within a year they were ready to do R&B music, but they were afraid to do it because the church leaders told them that wasn't a good idea because they'd be doing the devil's music. But they decided to go on ahead and do it. They still did it. They changed the name. They didn't change the name. They were still the Gospel Starlighters, but they created a new group called the Avons so they could do their R&B music. And the rest is history, of course. Yeah. It went on from there. Dad, he would pull his Bible out and he would read scriptures. And like I said, when he was off the road, when he was home, he would take some time to visit church.
Yeah. Well, Trinity loved him, claimed him, and your dad's sense of philanthropy and generosity to other churches within the city, to the city of Augusta, the annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway, the toy drive. These are all just legendary. And sometimes we don't get to see nor understand that part of an entertainer, particularly a celebrity. What drove your dad? What was this thing within him that drove him? And you're doing the same thing. And I don't think it has stopped. I think it has continued long after his death. But tell us about what drove your dad to be so generous in giving.
Well, yes, by the grace of God and the people that support the James Brown Family Foundation, we've been able to continue the annual James Brown turkey giveaway and toy giveaway. And Dad started that in 1990 because he never forgot where he came from. He remembered being a young boy with no food, no toys, no Christmas tree to put a toy under during Christmas, because my grandparents were very poor. So that was unheard of for him. So when he decided to do that back in 1990, it was because he did not forget where he came from. And I once, I traveled around the world with my father. I had to do his hair. So I traveled around the world with him, and I got to see him do a lot of things. For example, we were in Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles, and he stopped the limousine and said, "Hey, stop for a second." And he got ready to jump out the car. Security guards, trying to figure out what was going on.
Right.
Looked at me and said, "Hey, Deanna, come on, I'll show you something." So we got out. He walks across the street. It's a lot of homeless people on the sidewalk. And they start lifting their head. And, you can imagine the look on their face. They see James Brown coming across the street. He started giving out money. And he told one young fella, he said, "Take this money, go clean yourself up, get something to eat, do something for yourself." And I tell you, it was not about the money.
Right.
It was about the hope that he was giving these young people and the love that he shared. And mind you, there was no news cameras. There was no social media.
That's right.
When he did the turkey and toy giveaway, he didn't just put his name on it. He came out and gave physically turkeys and toys away. If he missed one turkey giveaway, he asked Reverend Sharpton to do that for him. But he wanted to be there so that he could go back into the hood where he grew up and see some of the people that he grew up with and shake their hands and give them a turkey personally. So it wasn't about, just putting my name there and getting the publicity from it and getting photo ops.
Right.
it was about really helping the people. And I learned that watching my dad traveling around the world with him. I learned that, you know, we could go in a 5-star restaurant in Ritz-Carlton and eat grand, but we also go in a beautiful restaurant in Atlanta. He didn't want to get some southern food in a regular old restaurant, you know. So it was a lot that I learned from my dad. You never forget where God started you from.
You don't. Let's take a look at this.
Brother Joe Mays. But I want to look at this young man, your brother Pixley, too. Again, I said we had a very unpopular experience together. We were incarcerated to know God together, and this young man is unbelievable. We got songs coming out together, and hopefully see the Blue Stairs and this young man together. While I say this one, I know a man from Galilee, if you're in sin, he'll set you free. Oh, Lord, I know him. He's the son of David, seed of Abraham. Though you're like a mountain, he'll treat you like a man. Oh, done it. Oh, I know him. Build up my road, break off my dash. I shall not sway, because he holds me fast. So dark my days, clouds in the sky. Well, it's all right, because Jesus is mine. Oh, Lord.
I tell you, that is priceless. That is absolutely priceless. I brought up 3 individuals who are part of the great Trinity family. James Brown and Trinity are legendary. I want you to know that. And so before I bring the distinguished pastors up and get their perspective, I want to put this picture up. I don't know the exact year of this photo. On one Sunday afternoon, one Sunday morning, James Brown came to Trinity and worshiped there. And he gathered the young people there. And so I think Sister Diane Gilliard gave me this photo when I first got to Trinity. And I said, what, James? Oh, yeah, James Brown used to come to Trinity all the time. James Brown was a member of Trinity. He might have been a member of somebody else's church, but he was also one of ours. And I looked at the picture again. I said, who's on that picture that I can call and ask to tell me what it was like? Well, I know Reverend Fry and Reverend Maness can, but I have Mike Dorsey. Mike Dorsey grew up in Trinity. He is the son of Keith and Dr. Maggie Dorsey. And a part of that Dorsey and Wright and Thurman clan. They have been members of Trinity since 1924. The Wright, the sisters, the Tyler sisters, that's right, came out of Washington, Wilkes, Georgia. So Mike, first of all, glad to have you, my brother. And tell me, what do you remember about that visit that James Brown made that Sunday? Well, did you know who he was at the time? Did you realize the depth of the man who was visiting church?
Man, I'll tell you, first, thanks for having me here. And, you know, growing up in Augusta, the legend of James Brown is ever present. Like everybody, that's kind of a claim to fame, the Masters Golf Tournament and James Brown. Like when you say you're from Augusta, that's what it is. And what was interesting, as a young guy growing up, I can remember James Brown coming to church. He and his then wife, Adrian, would come to church. And and he was a showman, always a big smile, always happy, always just exuding love. And one of the things I used to always remember was he would always come a little bit late, and he would come to the middle aisle and he would walk all the way to the front of the church and sit right there in the front. And that was like the most amazing thing. He was smiling. He would walk down. He was the consummate showman, right? Like I love that. That was an image as a young boy that I always remember. When he came, he'd always come a little late before the sermon, and he'd walk in the middle aisle all the way to the front. And it was amazing. But the picture that you mentioned there, give a shout out to my cousin, Diane Gilliard. She had us do this event, or we put on this little play, and it was ironic, or maybe not so ironic, but they say the Lord works in mysterious ways. This was a play or this little presentation that was entitled "I'm Black and I'm Proud." It was entitled "I'm Black and I'm Proud," and we had no clue who was going to be there. It was just a regular thing that we in the CYF were doing. We did this "I'm Black and I'm Brown," "I'm Black and I'm Proud" presentation, and lo and behold, in walks Mr. "I'm Black and I'm Proud," James Brown, wow, sitting on the front row of the church as we, the youth, the CYF of Trinity CME, do this presentation that ended with, and the very end of it was, "I'm Black and I'm Proud." We all said that together. And James Brown was sitting on the front row, smiling ear to ear as we did this presentation. And then afterwards, that's why we came together and we're all wearing black. And we take this picture with him, and I'm actually standing right next to him in the very middle there. We take a picture with him, and but it was just like the most surreal moment. We did this thing entitled "I'm Black and I'm Proud," you know, curated by my cousin Diane Gilliard, and who was sitting on the front row was Mr. "I'm Black and I'm Proud" himself, James Brown.
Wow. That's amazing.
That brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
But someone must have reached out to him and asked him to come, and he took it upon himself to make some time to come and see that. You know, Trinity, especially in a lot of different ways, Mother Trinity is the one down there called, and that's where he learned how to play the piano. In Mother Trinity, Uncle Leon is what I call him. Leon, the Burner Austin, taught him how to play the piano in Trinity. He used to clean the floors there, but also too, my grandfather Joe Brown's funeral was held there, and I think that's when I first met Reverend Fryer during that time.
Yes, that's just something. Michael, I did not know or did not remember the fact that you all had done this play, "I'm Black and I'm Proud." And I know it was something magnificent if Diane Gilliard had her hands on it and in it as she did. Before I get to Reverend Maness, because I think Reverend Maness, you may have been the pastor at that time. Let me, Larry, I know Larry was having some connection problem. Larry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you, Reverend Fryer. Reverend Fryer, it's so good to have you. Tell us just briefly about your friendship. You wrote a magnificent piece in the Christian Index back in January, a salute to the great legendary Godfather of Soul, Dr. James Brown, pastoral memories of a friend and a member. Tell us about your relationship with the legendary Dr. James Brown.
Well, good evening to you and everyone else, and thank you for having me on the show. We had finished service Sunday and I went to one of my favorite places, Red Lobster, and I was sitting there, and someone pointed him out to me. So what I did, not to disturb him, I'm gonna tell you how we began a great, beautiful friendship. I got my business card and I wrote 3 words on it, and I shall never forget them, Deanna. I said to Mr. Brown, "You are loved." And that began our friendship over the years. I traveled with him around various places in the world. He came around me often. We got together for so many things. And Mr. Brown, we named a section in the New Hope Community Center, the James Brown Computer Learning Center, because he gave us 35 to 40 brand new computers to work. And as Deanna was saying, I was involved with him with his turkey giveaways, with his toy giveaways, and bought a lot of them myself to support what he was doing, because I know it was good. Now his scripture, James Brown's scripture, he asked me, well, what scripture should I use to define what I'm doing? I told him to go to Matthew 25 at verse 30 to 40. When I was hungry, when I was thirsty, when I was sick, when I was in prison, he used those things. But now James Brown also worked at the church. He was responsible for the beautiful carpet in front. He was responsible for the choir robes. And as Michael was saying, I remember James Brown coming and set on the second row when I saw him, but James Brown would give more amen than anyone else. And then one Sunday, I had him to sing, and he sang, "God has smiled on me." And he played it and sang it, and we have a wonderful time. And I have had so many fond memories with him. They did the statue, the naming of the street, his birthday, everything. And I would go to his home many times and pray with him when he was going through various situations in life. And James Brown stood, like Deanna was saying, was a testament to what Christianity was. And you know what? A lot of people don't know this. Mr. Brown asked me, one of the reporters asked me one day, and Deanna, I want you to hear this. You probably never know about this. He asked me, was James Brown saved? I said, if you look at the work that Mr. Brown has done compared to a lot of us who profess to be Christians, I think you will see what a Christian is in him. So he was a good man, very positive, and challenged us. And one day when Deanna was talking about he jumped out the car, one day downtown, he was giving out toys, and a man had on a very negative cap. James Brown went to that man, took that cap off his head, and gave him a few dollars, and told him to go get a right kind of cap to wear. So he was all over. I've seen him at his various seats. He would have at the hotel, even when he was over in this area by New Hope. He would drop in, and he wasn't too big. He wasn't too proud. He wasn't too great to help his fellow man, those men and women and boys and girls who stand by the side of the road. And this thing, we had a major march in Augusta when there was so much crime in the street. James Brown made a big, beautiful sign for that says, "Stop the violence," and it was over 300 or 400 African American men and others who took to the streets to march with us for nonviolence. And so he did so many great things. It's untold of for what Mr. Brown has done. But that's how I got him at Trinity. That when he began to come, began to stay, began to work. And I talked with him in my office one day, and I said, "Mr. Brown, we need you here." He said, "I'm going to come where you are, Reverend Fryer." And he had been there ever since until his sickness began to take him down. But he was a remarkable man, and I look to him as a man, Christian of God.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend Fryer. We just appreciate your sharing that. And that article is wonderful. Reverend Maness?
Yes.
Would you share your memories of the legendary James Brown coming to Trinity when you were pastor?
Thank you, Dr. Skip Mason, and to all of you. It's glad to be on your show. I met Dr. Brown, James Brown, in 1983 in Toccoa, Georgia. I was pastoring Trinity CME Church in Toccoa, Georgia. And it was at that time when James Brown had a musician who was our musician at Trinity in Toccoa, who played with James Brown. And this particular time I met him, we was holding revival. And after the revival, our musician said he has to travel out of town with Mr. James Brown. And that's my first encounter with Mr. James Brown in 1983. But then 11 years later, who would have known that I'm the pastor at Trinity CME Church in 1994? That ties in with that picture that you showed a few minutes ago, where James Brown came to church in 1994, and I happened to be the pastor there at that time. And I never forget, and you're correct, Brother Dorsey, that that program was put on. And James Brown even asked me after that program, he said, "Reverend," he said, "I'm going to come back. And would it be okay if I sing when I come back?" I said, "Oh yeah, come on back." And so a few Sundays later, he said he had to go out of town, be on traveling, but when he get back, he was going to come. So he came and he worshiped And after the worship service that Sunday, after I finished preaching, he asked me, he said, Reverend, be okay if I were to sing? I said, yes, sir, Dr. Brown. You can sing anytime in God's house. And so sure enough, he came down, and guess what song he sung? Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved an old wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Blind, but now I see. And we had a glorious time on that Sunday with Mr. Brown being in worship with us. But that was not the only time he was there at Trinity while I was the pastor. He came back another time in the year 1995. And I never forget this. This is at the time I had filed that lawsuit against Atlanta Gas Light Company.
Right.
Mr. Brown came and he said, Reverend, I've been reading in the paper about what's been going on down here at Trinity. And I shared with him what was going on. He said, you know, when I was a little boy, he said, I used to fish in that canal. He said, you don't know whether or not I was eating contaminated fish. I said, we don't know, Dr. Brown, but yes, that canal was contaminated. And so that was a great encounter that I had with him. And then he said to me that Sunday, he said, listen, he said, I want to meet your family. So I introduced my wife at that time, which her pictures, she's in that picture that you showed a few minutes ago, the tallest female in that picture.
Yeah.
And so he told me, he said, bring your family over to my office. And he had an office in West Augusta. He said, bring your family over to my office. He said, I want to take a picture with them. And so sure enough, later on, during our years, I took my family over there. But unfortunately, at that time, he was on the road traveling and we wasn't able to get the picture taken. But those are great memories that I had with Dr. Brown, Dr. James Brown. And he was a spiritual man. Don't let anybody fool you. Don't let anybody lie on you or anybody tell you otherwise. He was a spiritual man because you don't learn amazing grace, how sweet the sound that save a wretch like me, and just haphazardly sing it. It has to have some meaning in your life.
Amen.
And so we're grateful to my years of experiences with Dr. Brown in 1983, and then in 1994, and then in 1995. My great experience with Dr. Brown would never be obliterated from my memory.
Yeah.
God bless you, and thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So many people have been blowing me up with James Brown stories. Somebody remembers when he married his first wife, Velma, at Trinity of Toccoa, CME Church in 1953. And a good friend, Paige, said, my grandmother was a cousin of Sister Velma, and they remember when they had the gospel group. And there was a Floyd Scott who was of the famous Flames,
yes,
who was a member of Toccoa, Trinity in Toccoa, and who was buried there as well. And someone else said they remember one Easter Sunday at Trinity, he came and he brought his guitar. Okay, I don't know whether people realize he also could play the guitar, and he sat down. I think the Spruill shared that with me today. So Deanna, all kinds of memories and stories, and so, you know, he was so well known, and I'm sure that there are folks at Tabernacle and Beulah Grove and other churches that he visited, but we love him. He is a part of the fiber and fabric of Trinity, Mother Trinity, CME Church's history, which I had the pleasure of serving as pastor for 7 years. And I am just tremendously grateful to these pastors and Michael. Michael has a great platform, Black Fathers Now. Wanted to share that, and in fact, I'm going to have to bring him back on and have a conversation with him. But I certainly wanted to mention that to him as well. Doing great work and all in the spirit. I mean, you know, the James Brown Arena. Okay, I don't think in Augusta you cannot overname for him based on what he has done. And I think they're getting ready to redo the arena. I think I read that in the paper.
They are.
And I hope that there is
next year, but it's going to be built. It's going to be the designs and things they've been showing is fabulous. And, you know, you just think, You know, when I think back on things like this, I think about the things that my father would think about. It's like all he could remember is this young, poor black boy from South Carolina had to stop school in the 7th grade because of insufficient clothing. And he couldn't finish school. He had to go to work just to make a few pennies to bring home, pick cotton, carry bags from women coming out of H.L. Green, which is now the Board of Education, and picking up coal on the railroad. You know, these are the things that my father came from, you know, and he always would tell me, you don't understand that kind of life and you never will because you're born in royalty. And he was right. But I was so glad to have learned from him. It wasn't no problem with him going into a church, you know, to serve God and to pray. And a lot of interviews that he did, people would ask him, Mr. Brown, where does this come from? How do you get this? And he didn't go to music school. He wasn't afforded that opportunity to attend a James Brown Academy of Music pupils. So it was a gift from God. And he would let people know that right off the rip. God gave me what I have. I couldn't go to school and learn it. I'm self-taught, but it came through the righteousness of God and the grace of God.
I believe that. There is a wonderful exhibit. Let me share this with our wonderful viewers. If you're ever in Augusta, you need to stop by and see it.
The Godfather of Soul, Mr. James Brown exhibit, is divided into 3 major areas. We talk about the man, the music, and his legacy. This is the only major exhibition of Mr. Brown in the world. We have had people from Germany, England, Australia, Japan, Italy, all over the world, that this is almost like a mecca for them.
There are a lot of pieces in the Augusta Museum of History that speak to who my dad was.
He had a Bible in most every room in his home, so we have a Bible out. He had a full hair salon in his home, so we have salon products. We talk about his philanthropy. We do talk about his relationships in his life, and that's out there. His music, you have posters from all over the world. We have his musical instruments. And Mr. Brown could play anything. Great ear, self-taught. Of course, his costumes. And then his legacy, we talk about all his influence. will.i.am, Usher, Justin Timberlake, Michael Jackson. The list goes on and on.
Everybody's dancing like James Brown. Even Mick Jagger admitted that he don't dance like Jagger, he danced like James Brown. I see a lot of love for Dad and a lot of admiration and
Brother Mason.
A lot of influence too, but in a great and positive way.
Throughout, there are these testimonies, these audios that you can hear of people talking about who he was as a man and his music. And we also have some film of him performing. So it's pretty broad. We have many of his awards. We actually have the last award that he received, and that's from the United Kingdom Hall of Fame, Music Hall of Fame. He was inducted, the very last award that he received. So we have some one-of-a-kind stuff.
It is spectacular. It is great. And are they going to do an exhibit at the new arena? Do you know whether or not there's going to be an exhibit there as well?
They have asked for that. The old one, when Monty was there, they asked as well. But preservation is very, very, very intense. It's expensive too, because when you preserve something, you have to preserve it with the right lighting, with the right air control. There's security. There's so much that has to be considered. So I'm sure that we will work with the arena to be able to put something over there. But we're just thankful for the Augusta Museum of History and Nancy Glazier, the director that you showed there. You can check out the James Brown Family Historical Tour. We have a tour that we do every Saturday. If you go to, if you Google James Brown Family Foundation, the tour will come up. You can click it. We start.
What's that website, Deanna? What's that website?
James Brown Family, FDN.org, short for foundation. James Brown Family, FDN.org. The tour is every Saturday. It starts at the museum and ends at the museum. It's about an hour and a half, an hour, 45 minutes. We take you around Augusta in a nice air-conditioned bus to show you different places that connect to Dad. Speaking of the James Brown Arena that you had mentioned earlier, Brother Mason, is that two things about that. First of all, he was here to receive that flower, just like the statue. We want to give our flowers to our people while they're here. It's easy to do that when they're gone. So he was here to receive that. And I remember the day I called him, he couldn't believe it. And even in that situation, Dad didn't charge nobody for his name. He was glad and humbled that they even wanted to put his name there. Now, let me tell you about the James Brown Arena. There is no other arena named after any artist anywhere, period. This is it.
Wow.
There's the Joe Louis Arena, but Joe Louis is an athlete. James Brown is the only artist. Black, white, purple, green, or orange. You know, most of the arenas are named after corporations, like in Atlanta, the Phillips Arena, you know, or you got the AT&T Arena in different places, you know. So you got these kind of places. But there's only one arena named after an artist, and that's the James Brown Arena.
Wow. That is amazing. That is absolutely. And I can't wait to see the new arena. And of course, this is an iconic statue. In fact, when I first arrived to Augusta, when I was pastoring here, that was one of the first things I did. I took my kids to see it, and we went to the museum and all. So as we prepare to wrap up, and you've been so gracious with your time, any closing thoughts? I'm going to start with you, Reverend Fryer. Any closing thoughts? And let me unmute you. Unmute yourself. Okay, there you go, Reverend Fryer. You can speak. Reverend Fryer, you keep muting yourself. Unmute yourself, Larry. And then get your hands off the phone.
Right.
There you go. Go ahead. You can speak. We can hear you. Go right ahead, Larry. Uh-oh. Larry, did we lose you?
I think you muted.
Okay, you're having a little technical difficulty.
Well, let me just say this on behalf of my family. We thank you, Reverend Fryer, for all that you have done to support to support the James Brown family. So thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. And sorry, Reverend Fryer is having some challenges.
Mr. Brown himself gave me a duty to perform, was to commune his father. Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Well, okay, Larry, we did hear that he gave you a duty to commune his father, and if you did that, that was something magnificent, and yeah. I know both were blessed. Yeah, both were blessed. Thank you, Larry. We appreciate you. Presiding Elder Maness, Brother Dorsey, any final thoughts? And then I'll let Deanna have the last word.
You can't hear me?
I'm going to close out with another clip.
Allow me just to again to say how how appreciative I am to be able to share my experience with Mr. Brown. His music is still living today, and his legacy will forever live in the lives of people and the life of America. My experience with him is priceless. And one of the final words I want to say is that even my children now, Paul, then Amelia, they're grown, but they oftentimes emphasize how they had a privilege to go to his office, even though they didn't get the chance to physically take a picture with him. So thank you again for allowing me to share.
I'll be often.
Thank you. Thank you. Brother Mike.
Thank you, Reverend Maness. Pleasure to have met you and to have heard your experiences. And one thing, I was talking to my niece the other day, and I told her, I says, to have an experience, to have some type of photo, or to say that you had a chance to talk to James Brown right now in these days, it's like more than gold. So I'm pretty sure that it's something that will always go with you and your children as well.
And thank you again. And God bless you.
Happy day about
your foundation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes. So thank you so very much for allowing me to come on and share, my experience with the legend, the man, James Brown. And it is, living in, the Instagram era where everybody has a camera phone and everybody can snap an image. This comes from an era where we have to actually tell the story. So I really applaud you for being the griot and opening up and allowing us to share these experiences, because they're almost unbelievable in the present day and age that we live in, for us to have had casual encounters with James Brown, for him to come to a presentation that we did entitled "I'm Black and I'm Proud" and sit there in the front and take a picture with us, and us to have conversations with him. This is the legend that so many would have paid all kind of money just to be in his presence. And we got to worship with him. So thank you for sharing your father with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have met you, Michael, here. And God bless you and your efforts and what you're doing, Black Fathers Now. God knows if it's something that the foundation can work with you with, we'd be glad to. But I wish you definitely Godspeed and blessings and his very best for what you're doing, because it's so important. It's a man's world. It wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl.
Come on.
But it is so very important that our young Black men understand, and our older Black men reach back for these young men, because they so need it. So needed. It's so needed. So thank you for your efforts and what you're doing. I know my father would be proud to hear that you're stepping up to the plate to do something like that, and it's important. Thank you, Reverend Mason, for having me on today and having this discussion. It's something that you said, it's important. People see these artists like my dad, what they are, the singer, the band leader, the dancer, but they had lives, and most of the old school artists, came from the church. They came from some kind of gospel.
That's right.
Aretha Franklin, they came from some type of old school, and their music reflects it too. You can still hear it in some of the music, and they're not afraid to call God's name on stage. They're not afraid to say that they believe and love God. So to recognize that and to express that, so that his fans know that, yes, he loved God, he believed in God, he worshiped God, he read his Bible. He was not a perfect man, but if you show me a perfect man, I'm going to show you a lie, because ain't no such thing. So we just, I'm just thankful that we're able to talk about that. And like Michael said, to be able to discuss something like this, like he said, he just casually was with the Godfather. But to be able to talk about this is something that he can talk about and pass down to other generations for the rest of his life. And that's a blessing within itself, the experience that you are able to share.
It is an absolute blessing. And before I close out, of course, Michael is a nephew of my good friend and brother, Dr. Deanna Thurman. I know I'm going to hear him later on. That's one of my boys, and we gather on Sunday sometime just to go through what the day was like, So shout out to the Thurman and Aunt Kim and all of the Dorseys and Thurmans and Wrights and Tylers and all of them. My people, those are my people. I love them dearly. My James Brown story quickly. April 1969, Saturday, my mom said, we're going to the City Auditorium to a Saturday matinee to see James Brown. And this is what I saw at the age of 7 years old. We got there late, And so we were in the back. Mama had just purchased tickets. And so I couldn't see because the kids were standing up, screaming and hollering and so forth. And so Mama said, going around to the front. That's when you could let your child go to the front in a facility and not worry that he will get back. And so I went around to the front. Somebody picked me up and put me on a chair on the front row so I could see. And this is what I saw in the old Atlanta City Auditorium, which is now part of Georgia State. So that's my James Brown story. Deanna, love you. Thank you, dear. Elder Maness, Reverend Fryer, Brother Dorsey, God bless you all. And now we will go out with the beloved Godfather of Soul, singing "'Tis the Old Ship of Zion." God bless you all, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
This song is special to my family, to my father who's deceased. We travel so many times, and sometimes we fail to get aboard. God makes it easy for all of us to get aboard. At some point in your life, you should get aboard. Right here, I just like to say, for God's sake, in the name of His Son Jesus, remember the greatest love song in the world, God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. Whosoever believes in Him shall not perish. John 3:16. But John 3:17 said, God sent not His Son in the world to destroy the world, but the world through Him might be saved. And you can make that happen. Thank God. I'm a witness this morning. I just want to say, "'Tis the old ship of Zion, Lord. 'Tis the old, yes, sir, ship of Zion. Step on board if you want to see Jesus. Well, and follow me. There's one more thing I want to say right here to my mother at Upper Maness Hall. Oh Lord, it is landed. Many a thousand, help me, Jesus. It had landed. Many a thousand. It is landed, Lord, have mercy. Well, Lord, many a thousand. And I'm asking you to step on board. Well, if you want to see Jesus and follow me. Who says I want you to help me right here while I say it?